Thanks for your attention. I hope everyone's well fed. I was starting to go a bit lightheaded earlier, I must admit, so that's a relief. Now, the next session before a coffee break at 3:15, we've got two panels with a presentation between them. So it's my great pleasure to introduce as moderator for the first panel, Pia Melling, the Managing Director of Grieg Green in Norway. And she's going to look at what fresh opportunities are there for recycling in the push towards a more transparent and circular economy. So Pia, can I welcome you to the stage to introduce the panel?
So we have been debating whether we need more recycling capacity, right? But that's something we're going to talk about in this panel. Are there new areas that are coming up for recycling and green recycling as such, EU-compliant recycling? And what does it take for these areas to actually do business in a different way, and what business models can we look into that are different? So I'm very happy to have four excellent panelists with me here today. Mr. Reynold Pipers, who's the Director of International Ship Recycling Association. Please come and sit. And Mr. Hitesh Vyas, who's the VP Middle East and Green Recycling Coordinator for Virana Shipping Corporation. Please come. And Commander Reddy, who's the Deputy CEO of Andhra Pradesh Maritime Board. Please enter the stage. And Uday Yellapurkar, who's the Chairman and Founder and Director of Elegant Exit Company. Please join us. I'll sit with you, I think. Isn't that nicer?
Hi, sir. Welcome again.
That's nicer. So I want to start with you, Hitesh.
Yeah.
So you are the Green Recycling Coordinator for Virana, and you are one of the largest cash buyers and the oldest cash buyer globally, right?
Yes.
But how do you define green recycling? Because we know it's shades of green.
No, definitely. Green recycling, actually a very simple definition. I mean, if you just break the word green and recycling, so recycling is when you put any waste item and recover it and put it back to use. That's what you call recycling. When it is done in an environmentally friendly way, that makes it green, which minimizes the damage to the environment or totally restricts the damage to the environment. So that is green recycling in simple terms, irrespective of whichever product we apply it to. In case of ship, now it's green ship recycling is how we call it.
Okay, and if we assume there will be more capacity need for green recycling, where in the world do you see these new projects developing? Apart from the Turkey and the Indian subcontinent?
Yes, we are seeing some projects that are coming up. We have been, we know that we have Indonesia for one. We see that people are interested in looking at Indonesia investing. We have some facilities already, but people are looking at investing more there. We also have Saudi Arabia, a facility which is coming up in a very big way, RegDoc, and we also have, we had heard about South Africa. There's a 34 knot that's being developed also. These Saudi Arabia and these are huge facilities. I mean, what they're trying to cater to will be different and at a different level. Indonesian we see facilities also which are compliant, but on a smaller scale, we see the opportunities. And besides that, I think these are the ones that are coming up. But there is potential for other countries who have certain advantages where something can be worked upon.
What about Brazil? Because I know that Petrobras will recycle 2 FPSOs in Brazil. What do you think about that potential?
There is a good, I mean, it's a possibility. Also, Petrobras has got another 24 vessels that are going to be coming over years. So we know that they have identified yards and that are doing it for them. So it needs to be explored, and it is a possibility because it's already demonstrated that it is there. The feasibility in long term and with more competition, how feasible the model is can be reviewed. Because
I want to turn to you, Uday, because you are working on a different business model where you want to connect the steelmakers to the project of buying ships from you, right? Yes. And what is your experience so far with developing new capacity in the Middle East for this?
Yeah, in short, I was dead on arrival 3 years ago. Big ship owner, friend, Dubai Dry Docks, DP World, let's start. So learned by playing the game. It's like a video game. So luckily you have more than one life. So at every step, a lot of difficulties, but solutions are simple. But it takes some patience, some determination to go through this.
Some money.
Yeah, money is always there. There's plenty of money in the world. Well, capital has never been a problem for us, no. It's not a boast, but I think there is enough demand from scrap, and people know that's what drives the industry, because it's not a waste industry, it pays. So that is not that has not been a showstopper for us. If I may, let me elaborate, is what you said, it's a multi-party thing, what we do. So the ship owner sells the ship, at the end, scrap buyer, but then there's yard, there is waste management, there are authorities. So there are many parties who have to, but the word align is, I learned, no, this is not the way it is, because each party, although aligned at the highest level with me, the minister, the big ship owner, the board, the chairman, and then you have a yard also very enthusiastic, and we want to do this, etc. This alignment is there. I have never seen anybody saying, no, 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 this is not there, not even money, basically. But after the alignment, you have decision-making processes in each organization. I learned 3 levels: board, middle-level management, and then the people on the desk who work. This is also, then I stopped giving one example, that even the minister says, yes, environment, we want this or that, we will do everything, then goes. But the person who goes to check the asbestos on the ship sees the asbestos, he says, no, this ship must go back to Taiwan or Singapore flag, that is it. And all these people are doing their honest job. I cannot say. So you can see these decision-making processes, and they have 2 elements in it. One is, each party says risk management. So I must pass on as much risk as to the, not me,
Yes.
somebody else, starting with the ship owner, to the steel mill, to the authorities. Which country brought the way? So each party tries to, for good reasons, for risk management, put the risk to the other party. And I have met all these parties to say, hence the overall risk increases.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to take the risk, but it's a financial risk. So each party's risk, proportion of the risk goes higher. And each party negotiates by saying, if I'm not there, Uday, it will not work, which is correct. So this is the second part. I'm done after that. The second part is they take maximalist position. So when you have a multi-party deal, my books, the best deal is when each party goes slightly unhappy.
Yeah.
But the attempt is to make we all go happily. But if the steel mill buys the scrap for $100 less, it is coming from the yard's pocket. The ship owner says, what? So to make, if one party wants we make him happy, or 2, it is always coming from the rest of the 3. These 2 processes, one is the process management, and the other one is this understanding that if you maximize, then there is nothing, so you don't get anything. This takes time.
Yeah.
But I don't have any showstoppers from any one of the parties, any of the 3 levels. It takes time.
Yeah. So it's good you're patient and that you have capital.
Oh yeah, enough. How much you want?
And to you, Commander Reddy, so you're sure you want to go into ship recycling, huh? Please, you are, working on a plan in your state of Andhra Pradesh on the east coast of India to start recycling in a different way than it's done in Elang, and maybe you could elaborate a bit on the progress of that plan.
Yep. I'll start with saying that among all the experts here, I'm just a babe in the woods. I have no knowledge about ship recycling, the kind of expertise that most of you have. But I've been trying to, my aim is just very simple. If that's a good business, I would like to start it in my state of Andhra Pradesh. And I've been on a learning mission since last year. I've attended the TradeWinds last year, where I had taken a small opportunity to tell the audience that we are looking to start one, and we had some good response. So this time I think I'll reach to a larger audience. But now coming to the question of whether I would like to start or not.
Yeah.
Now I would like to add that when I came here, I wanted to clear some confusion in my mind whether to start or not. But now that I have listened to 2 days of discussions, I'm actually more confused now. With so much of discussion everywhere on this side and that side, I see some questions have come up in my mind saying that we can talk about the elephant in the room, but I would also like to talk about the larger elephant which is not in the room. That is, where is the main regulator which is on everybody's head, the EU. I mean, they're not here, and we are all worried about what will they decide and everything, and therefore that is a reason for consternation as of now. But anyway, I see the optimism, subdued optimism amongst the audience here, and I think there is a scope for increasing the capacity. There's going to be a lot of tonnage which is going to come up for recycling, and recycling per se being a green activity, we would like to encourage it. Recycling per se is green, and you're going to say we are going to go into green recycling. So we would like to do that, but we would like to examine, and we are a state actor. So therefore what we are looking at is giving the facility, facilitate the investor like him who want to come there, and we would like to give all the support from the state. And besides that, we are most welcome to new ideas in the maritime field. So we would like to examine, and I think there is a scope for rationalization, the method of doing it, where some more profit can be squeezed out of what is existing. That we will examine. Thank you.
I'll get back to you, but Mr. Pipers, you are representing yards in Europe and
Yes.
Turkey and
Yes.
China.
Yes.
You have been lobbying for a level playing field
Yes.
because your yards invested a lot of money in infrastructure.
Yes.
And now that the Hong Kong Convention is ratified, do you feel that you are getting that level playing field?
No.
No?
I don't think that we have that. No. No, I don't think we have. First of all, let me say that if you are talking about a level playing field, yeah, we are now dealing with the EU standards because we think that they're the best standards to operate. But they are the standards at this moment, but we must see whether they can be improved in the future. That is for one being. I think that the Hong Kong Convention is, like it is said before here today also, it's also described in the preamble of the EUSSR, it's a stepping stone of the EUSSR would be a stepping stone for the Hong Kong Convention. But the main lack, I think that, and we have discussed it more and more today, is of course the downstream waste management issue, and that is a serious issue. And why is that a serious issue? We had yesterday an excellent lecture from Henning, I don't know if he is present yet, about the need for a good IHM. But if you are seeing what we are doing with downstream waste management, then you see that there is a governmental influence in it. And if you are treating asbestos in Belgium or in the Netherlands or in Denmark, you have to go to the local community, you have to go to the province, you have to go to the guy, to the central government, you have to go to the one who is able to have a driver which is licensed to operate with asbestos in his vehicle. You have to have a vehicle which is prepared for asbestos, etc. So what you see is that the downstream waste management is having a lot of influence from local governments, local, provincial and central governments, with a lot of stakeholders in it, which makes it very difficult to get that operated smoothly. So I think that will be one of the main challenges for the Hong Kong Convention facilities, to see that process is in hand, and that you have to deal with a lot of players in the governmental field.
But we discussed earlier whether there is a need for more capacity, and what do you think in Europe and Turkey? What is the development? How many Turkish yards will we see on the EU list in the coming years?
Well, I prepared something with some figures about the capacity existing and the capacity needed. If you look at the common EU regulation, then it is argued, and I think we all agree, that the present capacity for smaller vessels is enough. There was no debate about that. The debate always has been, especially by the ship owners, say, no, we have the larger vessels which cannot be accommodated in the EU. And EU listed. Well, we have Turkey, but we have Mars here present, I think. We have Voyage yards in Denmark. We have Damen shipyards in the Netherlands, which can handle very large capacities. Still, we see a demand, a growth of the larger vessels. Panamax, new Panamax, and new Panamax Plus, and they will rise the coming 10, 15 years. And then the question is there then at that time enough capacity? Then you have to make the right equation. The equation is not present list with the capacity versus the demanded capacity in the future, in the near future, but what will be the outcome of the applicants already on the list by the EU, published on 16 February 2023, and there you'll see that we have 8 Turkish candidates coming on, new, those additional candidates, 2 Chinese candidates, and 25 Indian candidates.
But they all applied. Doesn't mean
They want to go on this.
Doesn't mean they come on the list.
Of course. No, but there are abundant. And this is only because I know from China, I think if China is going to open the borders, then 2 is very, very little. And I disagree with the one who said this morning that it will take some time for China to reinstall the ship recycling capacity. I don't think so. I've seen China operating from ship recycling capacity to repair capacity in just months. So I think that the whole discussion of capacity is not, I think, the discussion which should be here on table, because there is no discussion. It's a non-issue.
At the moment, yeah.
For the time being, Pia, for the time being.
Yeah, let's see. But I want to discuss a little bit with you, Uday, and Commander Reddy as well, because now in ASRI, you're doing recycling at the repair yard. Yeah. And Commander Reddy and I also discussed that, whether it's a good idea that the repair yards can also do recycling, because from the outside it kind of seems like a good idea. But is it going to work? Will they ever prioritize doing the recycling when they can do better paid repair work?
Okay, questions to me, right? Yeah. Okay. The answer whether it works or not is whether it works. So, but you can decide whether I at least present it in a way which is perhaps, it will not work like Diamond Rotterdam. I come from Holland. Just having a capacity there, not done a single ship, they won't even give me a quotation, okay?
I will come to that.
This is, actually I don't have time for these debates. What I want to say is I'm doing the real job in ASRI with the difficulties, okay? So it is transition. Yeah, they all want to do it. They are actually doing the ship. Whatever ASRI is, they're doing it. They could not buy the ship because it's a yard you cannot buy, so we started a holding. So we go in a process where we say, what is the difficulty? What's stopping? So are we having a dialogue to say, okay, what's the issue? I can't go to a bank, so okay, I will put capital, I will have a company, I have a director holding. Like that we go. Now the question comes, will it change or not? Then I have 2 little examples. in my life, let's say, is to say, will people change from a single hull tanker or double hull tanker? Yeah. Perhaps you know there was an EEC who started the first double hull tanker. There were no classification rules even. Today, can you have a single hull tanker? Regulations followed.
Yeah.
Regulations did not drive anything. Regulations do not drive a Nokia or an iPhone. Business drives it. Regulations follow. Secondly, because there is money in this business. It is not a waste like how you do asbestos or whatever. It is money there. Okay, that's the first part. Second example I have is my country. I'm very proud to be Indian that way. So I sailed on ships like India's first containerized voyage, and we built multi-useless ships. We could carry vegetable oil, we could carry containers, we could have derricks, we could have reefer chambers. We had good training for me. We could do everything. It was multi-useless. And our brothers in Taiwan, Evergreen, they just went only containers. You can't load anything else. And we watched them passing by with success. India has ended up in this, being multi-useless, very expensive ships in many yards. Yeah, so that's what I tell to the estuary owners. Yeah, you lost so much money for the last 20 years. Now you have a repair bonanza, so you say we have a party. Management and the owners don't believe it will last. So I say, would you like to take the look at the model, but not in a maximalist way? If you're going to charge higher at steel plant, and they're all listening, they're all ready. So we have a few places like this who think, not only estuary, who say, okay, world did go from break bulk. People were defending break bulk is there, labor unions, etc. The world changed. Yeah, but it doesn't go necessarily to a fixed phone to all the Africans and Indians and then mobile phone. It is not Darwinian evolution. People go to mobile phone directly. So I believe many
You believe it's the right solution, it just will take time.
Yeah, because if the drive is there and the markets are there, markets and money, the scrap demand is there, that these yards like estuary, after some time, they do not, the board they do not say, so let's make a dedicated place for the entire place or a berth. That's what where it is, either a wet lease or a damp lease, something like that. This dialogue is there in many yards where we are focused on. Whether it will take place is whether we have the patience and the capital not being a problem for me. Yeah. So,
Good for you.
Yeah, but even
But then for you, if you were to build the future recycling yard in your area, would you do a combined repair and recycling?
yeah, I'm not interested in answering that, in trying to differentiate and try to tell which is better and if they can work together. But I'm more interested in the result of the discussion, in the sense that that will add value to the facility that I'm going to wanting to create. This has been at the back of the mind while we were working on it, whether we can add multiple purposes for the yard so that it becomes more viable. And this is obviously, on paper it is quite easy, like a repair yard, and they use the same facility, same procedure, same equipment, and probably can reuse the spares out of a recycled ship, etc., for ship repair. So on board, it does look very clear that it is complementary. But I have been talking to experts like him and etc., etc. They've been contravening about that kind of a solution. So we will think about it, and as such, we are not the operators. We are the facilitators, and the investor who comes to operate that, he will choose what he wants to do with his yard, and we would like to support him. That's it.
But Reinhold, don't you think Damen and all these yards, they will be busy with new buildings and repair and upgrades, and a lot of ships need to be upgraded now with various fuel-saving devices. Docking times are doubled. So there is not going to be real capacity in the EU yards, even maybe for smaller ships, because they're just going to be too busy with other business that is paying more.
If you're talking about EU-based yards, then I disagree, but let's talk also about the EU-listed facilities. But if you are talking about companies like Damen, we in Israel have the same discussion.
Yeah.
Because what are they doing on the list? They don't recycle a ship. Why should they be on the list? So we then go to various companies. There are the more. I'm not going to focus on one. And then we are going to ask them, we have asked them year in, year out, why are you on the list? Because we have waiting for business. And if the business is better for ship recycling than for ship repair, then we go ship recycling.
It's not going to be better. Than repair.
So
and repair is always urgent, and the ship owner will pay a lot to get the vessel out.
But they are willing, so one way or another, to stay on that list. And capacity is capacity.
And it looks good for the EU that there's lots of yards on that list.
But don't focus on. But if you want to focus on those, we'll focus on those. But you can also focus on other Mars present here, Turkey.
Yeah.
So the
So
capacity issue is not an issue.
No, you're
It's
quite
not-
confident that Turkey will have 6 more yards on the
Or
EU
8
list.
or more.
8 or
Yes,
more. Okay,
yes.
good. Okay, back to Virvana.
We are not talking about an urgent problem now.
No.
Okay.
Agree. I think with all these changes now coming in the market, and there's all this insecurity on legislation, there's geopolitics, there's what will happen with the steel market, all this. Are you having the same business model as you always had, or are you thinking about new business models as a cash buyer and market maker?
Yeah, no, we actually would continue doing the same that we are doing, only the modification in the business model enhancement improvements come along the way. We have been here in the market for 40 years now. We have had made changes according to the requirements and how it was. In fact, to give you an example, I think just a decade back, or a little less than that, ours was one of the first yards that went into HKC approval, got approved. And the only reason why that happened was we started working on it even when it was a concept for India, and we were thinking, oh, will it really work? And should we actually invest a lot of money in this? And that was the thought process when we said, let's go. Now, going forward from here and where we are now, the requirements of the ESG and other things are there. There's, as we discussed and we saw, that there is confusion around what they should do, what they should not do. So we talk about ship owners, the ship recycling facilities, and anyone who is a stakeholder who wants to know what should be done from time to time for their specific asset. We actually can and do talk to them to see what can be done. At the same time, there are if there is any ship recycling facility where we could work with to improve their, or not improve, to work with them rather, to say whatever we could see to enhance the facility. Because somebody has to see the positiveness in doing an activity before they can actually, before they can actually start doing it. So it's important to highlight and advise both ends. So that's what we do. And we have our own team ourselves, as well as we work with a lot of professionals in the field of ESG, so that we can work with them too, based on the requirements of the ship owners, besides having our own in-house operations that can take care of everything.
Yeah.
So that's our business model. Nothing changes. We as cash buyers will continue what we are doing, but yes, we will enhance what we are doing to meet the requirements of the industry.
And this industry, I think, like every industry, is facing lots of uncertainties. And I think there's no answers for the ship recycling facilities in exactly how to invest and when to invest in what. Unfortunately, this is the case for all industries, that we're lacking this foresight. We need to take a chance, I think. We need to believe in the future and decide what we want to do, and we need to invest. And I appreciate what you said, Uday, also, that maybe we don't have to wait for regulations. Maybe the regulations actually will follow. And if we only wait for regulations, we will never get to any improvement, is my view.
But I will just agree with you, but with a small thing, that the regulations are very important to actually make the project visible.
Yeah.
You end up spending a lot of time otherwise just trying to establish a road for the further progress. So equal support from the government and regulatory authorities are important, in addition to our own effort, is what I would like to say.
I think our time is actually up. Thank you.
One
Very small thing. Yeah.
Related to the question you had asked me,
Yeah.
I think there should also be discussion among the experts here.
where while studying how it can be viable or not viable given the difficult scenario, we probably can explore different methods of synergizing with various things, like you said, ship repair, or like in my case, in Andhra Pradesh, we are building a series of ports, deep water ports. There are going to be a lot of shipping there and a lot of demand for ship repair. So at the same time as with the ship recycling, what we are looking for, if it can be reused and repurposed for ship repair during the times of this thing, therefore there's a business opportunity.
Yeah.
So synergies with the downstream industries, not growing organically, but the government, like what we are trying to do, make it a proactive thing where we set up the downstream industries along with the ship recycling yard, cutting down the cost of logistics, etc. So these are the things probably the fraternity can think about and suggest where the future ship recycling facilities can be more, we can squeeze the buck out of whatever we have. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and you, I mean, learn from each other, I think, share some
thanks.
information, and like Brazil will also do recycling now at repair yards, so yeah, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. So Uda, you have to share all your learnings, all right? Yeah.
Always welcome.
Always, good. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for the short time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pierre, just stay there a moment.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask
Yes.
you, Pierre, thanks for moderating that. But in your capacity in Greek Green, as a consultant, as an observer, as a guide to people, the issue that was raised in the last session for lunch about markets, and Harry and Darren touched on it, the ownership of the world market is changing. Increasingly, what you might call sort of higher level or reputationally sensitive owners are selling ships as before the end of life because they don't want to actually have the problem themselves. Because it's too complicated.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
No,
And,
yeah, no, I agree that we see this change, but it's not necessarily only that they don't want to be the one recycling, it's that they want the modern fleet more than ever. And you know, trading, especially trading the ships in the EU, when they have all the ETS and all this regulation coming into force, I think it's a combination of wanting to have the most modern tonnage, and then because of the regulations coming on CO2 emissions, and of course the worry about the complexity of ship recycling. But I think the responsible companies are becoming even more responsible in a way, and there will be more of them. And I mean, every stock listed company will have to deal with more and more transparency acts coming into force, not only in the EU. I think this will spread, so there will be more. The bigger companies will take more and more responsibility, but then, as you're right, I think the brokers are perfectly right that it's a shift. The world will be more divided into modern tonnage with high-end owners, if I might call it that, and the rest. And our job is, of course, to try and engage the rest, because we're working mainly with the responsible ship owners today. But I think we all need to also work with engaging the big amount of ship owners who don't know anything about this, who don't care about it, and that we need to put some light on also what they're doing. And I think actually the banks will help with that. So we will have a panel afterwards, right, with the DNV at least. And I think the banks and the Poseidon Principal banks will have to take a role in this.
Lovely, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, and thanks again to the this panel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just if I could just say, looking ahead to the evening, the buses to the dinner at Sentosa Island will be outside the main lobby here between 6:15 and 6:30. So if you're there at 6:15, there will be a bus to take you, and they'll come back from dinner at 10. Come back to this hotel. So yeah, there you go. Buses to Sentosa 6:15. Great. I remembered something to tell you that. It's been a long day, but we've got some very interesting things to come. The next one is a presentation on the Ship Recycling Transparency Initiative and the changes in the organisation and management of that. And so it's a great pleasure to introduce Christoph Wolf, the CEO of Smart Freight Centre, to do that. Christoph.
Yeah, my name is Christoph Wolf. First of all, thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. And I want to start by saying we are, in a way, the new kid on the block. So the Smart Freight Center comes from originally from a different angle. So we are the global platform. We are an NGO platform that has set out the rules for emission accounting and reporting of carbon in the global freight sector across modes. And within maritime specifically, we have set up, or we're operating the so-called Clean Cargo Working Group that has about 90 cargo owners and shipping lanes and shipping companies, so carriers and cargo owners. And we're operating on a regular basis that trip level cargo emission data are being exchanged, and the purpose is that cargo owners are coming into the situation to have better informed decisions. Now, because we are working with the sector, so we actually have been asked like a year ago if you were willing to host the Ship Recycling Transparency Initiative, and that before was hosted by the Sustainable Shipping Initiative, and we said yes. And so now we are actually doing a little bit of a crash course in learning how the ship recycling industry globally works. So I talked about the Smart Freight Center. So we are so our delegation here is myself. So I'm the CEO, and then in the next panel you will have the project manager for the Ship Recycling Transparency Initiative, Giulio, that will be leading the next panel. And the goal of the Ship Recycling Transparency Initiatives is to bring ship owners and especially cargo owners, so basically the same constituents that we're working with, to the table, and show in a very transparent way what they're doing. Yeah, and there's a website. There's actually a dialogue on this going of exchanges. And we are, as now the new host, in a way working with the constituents to see how we can strengthen the role of cargo owners and ship owners in the whole ship recycling conversation. Now, we've learned over the last 2 days about the regulatory framework, and if I listen to that from a non-insider perspective. So a few things really came to my mind. So number one is apparently, I mean, there's really a great deal of progress and of excitement and of actually entrepreneurialism in the sector, and especially in South Asia, in order to move this whole industry to the next level. And I think that needs to be recognized at a global basis. If you look at basically the different regulatory frameworks, there seems to be a strong need for harmonization. So make sure that there really is a North Star of regulation. The fact that this is not the case is actually not unusual. It's not only in ship recycling. Yeah? So if you have worked for those of us like Smart Freight Center that have been working in maritime transport or in aviation, it's always the same. Yeah? So the global regulation and the EU regulation is actually not very well aligned, which creates trade-offs and some navigational basically challenges. And the fact that, as I learned, that actually the EU ship owners currently are not able to send their ships to South Asia, where more than 75% of the capacity sits in an industry which probably will see more uptake, is something that needs to be fixed actually relatively soon. Now, I don't think So this is a great learning, and I think we may want to explore also as an initiative which is based on the voice of ship owners and of cargo owners. Yeah, so the ones that actually want to see their cargo transported by ships that actually are in compliance with all of this. So basically, bring this voice into the conversation, into the regulatory conversation, may be actually an important point. Now, we look at the industry in a somewhat systemic way, and I think we've touched on the various actors to play a role. So typically, we are coming from the left-hand side. So a Smart Freight Center has about 200 plus cargo owners specifically, that we are working with. But we also, as has been said before, and I think there's a panel later on, I think the role of ship financiers and insurances cannot be underestimated. So I was part of the initiative of the Global Maritime Forum from early on the Poseidon Principles. I think I would concur with the fact that there may be an extension of the Poseidon Principles to the to ship recycling. To be evaluated, and I think that probably is a role for the insurers as well. But in addition, we think on the other side, so there's a supply side, so ones that actually own the ships and move goods with the ships. So there's a demand side, because I think that given that we will see this surge and this run and the transformation of the global steel industry, and India, South Asia being a hub for the global steel industry, yeah. So which will actually need a lot more scrap, yeah. Going forward, and I think this industry, which is also a consolidated industry, so we talk about the ArcelorMittals and Tata Steels and JSW and others, they will also look at their supply chain, yeah. So they could be actually be a joint party, or there will be a joint party in making sure that the supply chains are ESG compatible. Now, I think we looked at that. It seems that between the EU and the Hong Kong Convention, the main topic seems to be the beaching versus landing. So, and I've been learning that there may be different actually nuances and variations of that, and still maybe some gray areas. So which should be solved or made more specific. I know that we've known that actually fellow NGO platforms are very much advocating towards dry docking, but I also learned that that may be not a financeable pathway going forward, even though we found that the Maritime Vision of India actually puts dry docking in the center, so there will be some movement along those lines. Now, the Ship Recycling Transparency Initiative has 32 signatories. You see basically the breakdown, and our basically, because we are an ecosystem player, will also take an ecosystem approach. So we are, as an organization, together with the Climate Group and Steel Zero and others, are quite involved in the steel transformation. So we, as I said, could be another force that could be leveraged in order to change the nature in the industry. And we think there could be, in the absence of a clear framework, there could be, and we've seen this in other industry, a voluntary framework by ship owners and by cargo owners to say, okay, what is actually our disclosure standard that we are collectively basically committing to, and this is something that we are currently discussing. This is not the only industry that has that. So other relevant examples are, for example, in the mining industry. So there is by IRMA and others, there's a responsible mining assurance standard, and the fact is that there's some similarity. I think there's a lot more appetite for basically for natural resources. And there's always been the concern that in mining there's a lot of unsustainable practices with respect to water, labor, and so on. And I think there's now certification standards and basically practices that are commonly adhered to and accepted in the industry. And I think we've been hearing before that something like that may be relevant, because otherwise everybody is defining their own standards and is sending their basic inspectors or so to the yards in order to comply with that. Poseidon Principles I already mentioned. I think the financing industry has a big role to play in order to move this forward. So in short, we think, we're coming very much from the private sector side as a platform. We think that actually the different pieces of the ecosystem on the supply and on the demand side can be leveraged in terms of standards and maybe move that a bit quicker, given that the Hong Kong Convention was already there in 2009. So there could be more dynamism, and this dynamism is needed because it's a very dynamic industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christoph. And now let's go straight into the discussion for the next half hour or so. And it's a pleasure that will be led by Julio Venier, as Christoph mentioned, who's the program manager of the SRTI program at the Smart Freight Centre. So, Julio, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julio Venier. I'm the program manager of the Ship Recycling Paris Initiative. It's a great pleasure to be on this stage today. I want to thank you, TradeWinds, for this opportunity. I'm very excited, and want to welcome you to the next panel where we're gonna explore, transparency and transformation in ship recycling industry. So I want to do a step back, connecting to the presentation that Christoph just did, and talking about the SRTI that started this narrative 5 years ago around the concept of transparency as a meaning to bring transformation, driving positive transformation in ship recycling. And in the last 5 years, as also we saw today, there have been many changes in the industry, and we see that the industry is positively aligning on the global drive on sustainability. And so today's discussion, we will try to explore the role the ship recycling as an industry might have with the advent of the green steel production, so in the supply chain of the steel. And knowing that we have on the horizon the Hong Kong Convention advent in 2025, we believe that this might represent a blueprint for catalyzing the transformation and continue to sparkling this green steel industry advent. So today I have on the stage 3 guests, and they are Wan Jing Tan, who is team leader of the P&I Marine Claims at GARD, Rakesh Bhargava, who is the founder and director of Sea Sentinels, and we have Abbas Sinya, who is a project manager at Steel Zero, which is an initiative that wants to bring net zero emission for the steel industry. I'm gonna sit with them, so I'm gonna be a little bit more comfortable. So I want to start with a very general question, and maybe with you, Wan Jing. If you can, how important is ship recycling in your industry?
So, thank you very much for this question. I think GARD is actually one of the biggest marine insurer in the world. So we are actually quite embedded in the maritime industry. We are also part of the UN Global Compact. Mm-hmm. And so we actually are committed to carrying our business in accordance with the UN developmental goals. And I can also say that we are very, very committed to actually taking steps to contribute to a safe and environmentally sound practice when it comes to handling of hazardous waste and pollutants that comes from or originates from ship recycling. I think from our perspective, ship recycling is both desirable and necessary. A lot of it is that 95% of the ship's weight actually would result in non-hazardous steel that can actually be reused. So we recognize that there are good business opportunities for the industry, and that it is very, very important that recycling is actually done sustainably in an environmentally safe way. So I think I can say quite clearly that it's quite important to us. So we actually have 3 main focal areas that we really look at. We look at, we look at the health and safety risk that the workers face at the yard itself. We look at, the measures taken by the yard in ensuring and minimizing pollution from ship recycling. And we also look at the measures taken by the yard to actually control and deal with the hazardous waste that comes out of that. And so I think we can say quite clearly that that is quite a big priority in the way GARD commits and helps the industry in figuring things out, I think.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Rakesh, how is ship recycling important in your field of business?
Ship recycling is one of the cogs in the whole gear or the wheel of the shipping industry. Whether they are commercial or if they are ship owners are operating commercial ships, at the end of the day, they have to think of getting rid of those ships one way or the other. Either they sell it on the S&P market or they would probably go for ship recycling. So the key is ship recycling is important, but the key factor is responsible ship recycling. That's what we have to focus on. And now what we have seen speakers earlier talking about responsible ship recycling, there's some gray shipping and all that, but end of the day, the regulations that HKC has put in, it will have every ship to be recycled responsibly. No question. Otherwise, why is the regulation there? And once HKC is ratified, every state is bound, the signing on state is bound that there is no irresponsible ship recycling in his country or in his state. Otherwise, why has he signed on the HKC? So I don't believe once Bangladesh has signed on, it would be illegal to have any non-HKC yard in their region. Similarly, India, similarly, Bangladesh, similarly, anyone or Pakistan who's going to ratify. So even if you have different shades of owners, at the end of the day, they still will have to go to a ship recycling yard. And that ship recycling yard, in my opinion, 99% of the time will be HKC certified yard, and the government, the stakeholder is the government, and the government of that ship recycling yard will ensure that it is done responsibly. I doubt there will be many irresponsible shipyards also there. So at the end of the day, they will have to go to a yard which is responsible.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm curious to hear also from the eye of Steel Zero, what's the importance of ship recycling from your side?
Yeah, good afternoon everyone, and thanks Julia for the introduction. So I'm going to answer that question from the perspective of steel manufacturers in the Indian context, because that's what I'm most familiar with. And I think it'll be helpful for me to just take a step back and give you a very brief snapshot of what the Indian steel industry is like, to see where ship recycling can come in. So India is the second largest producer of steel in the world, behind China. But I think what differentiates India from the other major steel producing countries such as China, US, Japan, South Korea is the fact that while the steel production in those countries has largely flatlined, including in China, in India it's going to grow exponentially. In fact, over the next few decades, the steel demand and production in India is supposed to almost quadruple from 220 million tons right now to almost 450 by 2050. Those are the estimates. So that's the first thing. Second, India has committed to becoming a net zero economy by 2070, just a couple of years ago. And what's important to notice is that the steel sector, the iron steel sector, contributes almost 12% to the overall India's emissions. So that's the second thing. Which brings me to the importance of scrap as a critical decarbonization lever for the Indian steel industry. So what is clear is that the Indian economy cannot become net zero without steel decarbonization. It simply cannot happen. So scrap, again, if I were to throw some figures at you, the use of every ton of scrap that is used for steel production roughly ends up saving around 1.5 tons of CO carbon emissions through reduced use of iron ore, coking coal, limestone, etc. So if we agree until this part, this is where the ship recycling comes in, because we know that the potential of ship recycling in India is largely untapped, and there's a clear case which the government is actually pursuing through the Maritime India Vision, that we are actively trying to make India one of the largest actually ship recycling market in the world. So if you combine all of this, and there are some financial metrics as well, you can end up saving import, like we are importing a lot of scrap right now to meet that scrap deficit. So if you bring all of this together, I think it leads to a very strong case for responsible ship recycling in India from a steel purse point of view.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. So we yesterday and today we talk a lot about regulations. So we heard Hong Kong Convention multiple times, I guess, and all the others. So, but I think that it would be interesting to know from you what would be, from your perspective, the major progress in ship recycling transparency, and what would be the importance for your industry? I don't know. I leave it, whoever wants to start.
Yes. With the Hong Kong Convention coming in, I'm very positive for that. The Hong Kong Convention coming in will have challenges, will have opportunities for all sets of people. For example, for the ship owners, you suddenly have an access to a whole lot of yards which will probably pop up to be able to offer recycling in a responsible way, in a Hong Kong Convention prescribed way. And the opportunity for the ship owners would be probably that they don't have to take the ship from A to B. So the emission part of that last voyage can probably have a credit to the ship owner. So that's one opportunity for ship owners. It will have to be balanced against the commercial angle of that, but that's the ship owner's call, whether he wants to do save on emissions, or he wants to have the better cost for it or the price for it. Then we have the yards. The yards, of course, now there are opportunities for them too. They just want some investment, some investors who will help them to upgrade themselves and be HKC compliant, because anyway, they will not be there if they are not HKC compliant. No recycling state will accept them, should not accept them actually. So they will only be HKC compliant, and then they have to upgrade themselves. So that's the second part for the opportunity for the yards. But on the other hand, the recycling state has many challenges. Now they have let's say 80 yards there, and maybe 70 or 60 of them needs upgrading. Who will give them finance? How will they finance themselves to be upgrading? So there will be pressures on the recycling state from stakeholders. Hey, you have to accept us. So the interpretation of the recycling state for the Hong Kong Convention is going to be a very important point. So maybe from the EU part, the interpretation is at a very high standard. When you're talking from, let's say, recycling state which is just coming into being, the interpretation will be at a lower stage. So there will be a little bit clashes there. So the government of the recycling state will have a lot of challenges to deal with. What area, because they will have to ratify, as a social platform, they will be under a lot of pressure to ratify even the yards which are not really compliant. So that will be a challenge for the recycling state. But at the end of the day, I think whichever yards can get the finance to be able to upgrade themselves, at least to the standard of a recycling state, Hong Kong Convention, what they think it is, then it will be okay. But there will be challenges and opportunities for everyone.
Okay, so we already had other lawyers on the stage, but it would be interesting to hear also from your perspective, because you're also a lawyer, and maybe from the insurance perspective,
Yes.
what's the impact of transparency on on your industry?
I mean, I don't think I need to go through the transparency initiatives again. I think I think we've heard a lot about it. I don't think I can give a better summary than everyone else who's spoken about it. I can say that GARD is a very strong supporter of the various initiatives, and we are actually a signatory to the SRTI.
They are, I can confirm that.
Yes. So I think what I can say really is that from an insurance perspective, we are a service provider. You know, at the end of the day, when it comes to a planned end to a ship's life, it really is going to be a decision that's taken by our members and our clients. So when we have this data, this transparency, the openness, the responsibility, we get the information And it allows us, as an insurer, to make a decision as to, whether cover is available for a dispute that happens at the sale of this vessel at the end of its life, Or perhaps, for example, for an unplanned end to the vessel's life, it helps us drive and figure out, how are we going to best handle this claim? How are we going to best handle this wreck that happened because of various reasons? And I think the third thing that's quite important for us as insurer is to be able to use this data and information to actually educate our members. I don't think it's surprising to say that different ship owners are at different stages of their ESG business and their drive. And some ship owners have in place clear protocols and processes, and some ship owners do not. Some ship owners require some assistance in understanding their obligations and the new world, this new focus in ship recycling. And that's where we can come in as an insurer to help them understand the regulations and educate them as to what their new obligations are. And that's something that having this data and information can really help us in bringing it back to our clients and members to ensure that everyone moves in the right direction. And I think that's really how we, as insurer, can help shape and influence the industry going forward.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. So maybe I have a question for the next question for Abbas. I know that it's a little bit maybe taking from a little bit of afar, but do you think that ship transparency criteria will eventually influence, the steel making industry?
Yeah, so I first of all completely agree with Wan Jing when she said that there is little that we can add to the regulation discussion that has already happened in the last 2 days.
I agree.
I did want to highlight one initiative that Maersk has taken, and I think a lot of people here in the audience would be already aware of this. So Maersk is a member of Steel Zero, and we work very closely with them. And they have their own responsible ship recycling standards, which they expect their recyclers to adhere to. And we believe it's a progressive step in the right direction. But beyond that, if you speak about the steel industry in general, I wanted to touch upon why I feel this is a particularly exciting time for ship recycling in India. So there's a couple of reasons for this, domestic and global pressures. So the Indian government is going all out in decarbonizing the steel sector because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. We have this net zero target by 2070. One of the ways in which they are doing it is that they're presumably working on some green steel mission document. I'm not sure when exactly it's going to come out, but one of the things that's going to be contained there is a definition of what green steel is, like what the criteria that makes that you can use to call green steel. They're also planning on implementing some sort of mandates on sustainable green public procurement, procurement green steel in public projects. Again, I'm not sure when exactly that's going to come out. Which is inevitably going to lead to a greater push towards steel decarbonization. And second, this is a more global, since we have been talking about Europe and EU quite a bit, CBAM is coming into force, and it's going to come into force, I think, beginning of 2026. And steel is one of the 6 sectors that the CBAM targets. So if Indian steel producers want to continue to export steel to the European market, then again, for that reason also, to be competitive in that market, we have to start decarbonizing steel. And which all of this is to say that steel scrap is going to play an increasingly important role, and I think this is an exciting time for ship recyclers to really provide that high qualities of scrap steel, because the steel used in ship are of high grade, good quality steel.
And just if you add for the context, what would be historically an alternative for steel scrap? If something that is not coming from ship recycling, what would that be? That source?
So right now we import quite a bit of it. I think the sector that is utilized most for domestic scrap availability is automotive, end-of-life vehicles. And that is something government is still working on. That is, still work to be done there. But ship recycling is largely untapped, I feel.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Thank you. So I think the next question would be interesting to explore the role and the I mean, we talk and we hear talking about ship recycling in the future. You know what it's going to be, how it's going to look like. I'm just wondering if actually transparency can play a role to create a circular model in the supply and demand chain of steel. Maybe Rakesh, you're quite experienced in the maritime sector. You have 40-year experience. What is your vision on this point?
What I would like to see and believe as it goes on is to have we talked a lot about circular steel being circular.
Yeah.
But how really to achieve it is a big challenge. We have the shipbuilding in one area, one geographical area. We have the ship recycling in another geographical area. So unless the two areas are together, if the two areas are together, then the ship owner can drive. At least the supply chain can drive that, okay, I sell my ship to the shipyard, ship recycling facility, and have contracts in place that you will sell my scrap steel to the steel producer who will produce steel which is zero steel or green steel, whatever you may call it. And then at the same time, the ship owner will have a contract with a new building yard and have contracts in place to buy that green steel from that producer. So in that sense, you can have a circular economy coming back. That is possible if you have in the same geographical area. Mm-hmm. But let's say you have a ship being built in China and we have a ship being scrapped or recycled in Turkey. Now how do you achieve that? So that's the biggest challenge for supply chain there. But I do believe that the ship owner can again have a contract with the ship recycling facility and the steel producer. Here, that my steel from here will go to the ship recycling facility, who will send it to the steel producer, who will produce the steel in a manner which can be called as green steel. He will sell the green steel or give the credits back to the ship owner. The ship owner can probably use that credits and go back to China, for example, and buy green steel from whichever steel producer is available there. Mm-hmm. So the steel which is scrapped in Turkey goes back in the ecosystem as steel. It need not be transported, because if you transport it from here to China, the emission cost is horrendous. So it will actually be no point doing that. So you put it back in the ecosystem in Turkey. There will be demand for green steel in Turkey itself from the local shipbuilders. And here he will buy the steel from China, which has been produced in a green steel. So that I would say, without actual physical transportation of steel, you have created a circular economy. And the only one who can drive it is the ship owner, because he has contracts in place with the shipbuilder, with the ship recycler, and the steel producer.
Okay.
So probably that's the only way I can think of can be done. Thank you.
This is very interesting. I think that I think it could be interesting to explore a model where actually the steel can be used as a credit, because of course we know, as you said, that ship recycling and shipbuilding don't happen in the same place. So maybe it would be interesting to hear from from the steel making perspective. So what is your takeaway on circularity of the steel versus ship recycling? Is there an opportunity from your point of view?
Yeah. So at the moment, to be honest, I think it's more indirect. But that's going to change. I think one way in which it's going to change is so Steel Zero in Steel Zero we also work very closely with Responsible Steel. Mm-hmm. And they have drafted a responsible steel standards essentially, which is undergoing a test phase at the moment. And increasingly more and more steelmakers around the world are becoming members of responsible steel. In other words, they are basically committing to producing responsible steel certified steel. So some of the largest steelmakers in India, that would be Tata Steel and JSW, but around the world, POSCO, I feel, and there's quite a few more. And among the criteria, so they have, their criteria has 13 principles across more than 200 criteria and sub-criteria, including transparency on how scrap is sourced. So, I mean, to answer your question broadly, you know, we can't change anything unless we measure it, and we can't measure something unless there is transparency. So transparency is obviously key to anything that we are doing. Yeah, I think that's how I would answer this.
Okay, thank you. So maybe a question for from the insurance perspective. If there should be something in the future of ship recycling, what do you think would be that from your perspective? What would you like to see coming from the experience of an insurer?
I can say that I think a lot of people in the room probably share the same sentiments as I do, which is, you know, what is the actual standard, right?
Right.
So there's Hong Kong Convention, there is the EU regulations, and I think from our perspective, it's always going to be good for there to be standardization. Mm-hmm. It sets a single standard for the industry to know what to adhere to, how to measure performance by, and I think with that, it gives us consistency, it gives us reliability, and it gives us data. And in having the data, it then helps us decide, you know, cover. It helps us decide how best to handle claims. And I think that really, to us, is the important aspect, which is really shipping is global, and we really just need a standard. We don't need a two-tiered system. It is a good starting point, but at the end of the day, to make things consistent and to make things predictable, which is what we like in shipping, and especially in insurance, we really are hoping for that standardization that is somewhere in the future, I think.
Okay, so yeah, I was actually wondering if there was any question. Please go ahead. Yeah, perfect. I think we take this question and then we wrap up.
No.
Doesn't look like, but
you're loud enough. Yeah.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity. In regards to material circularity, I'm just wondering why the panelists are thinking only about shipping, because material circularity goes into other industries as well. What we need to avoid is downcycling. So we don't need to have a shipbuilding yard next to a ship recycling yard. We just have to make sure that the circuits, even into other industries, are closed. But what I understood from the panel discussion was that it has to go back into shipping. So where does this approach come from? Is there any motivation for that, or maybe something I'm not aware of?
My answer was very clear. There were two options. Either you have the ship recycling, because we are a ship recycling conference. So either you have the shipbuilding and the ship recycling location in the same geographical area, or there's a possibility you may not have in the same geographical area. So if you don't have in the same geographical area, the recycled steel will go back in the local ecosystem. I'm not saying go back in the ship. Maybe, of course, if there's shipbuilding nearby, it's very good. But if it's not, it still goes back in the local ecosystem as green steel. And there will still be takers for green steel in that ecosystem. May not be shipbuilding, may not be, but there will be definitely some takers for that green steel. Those credits can be used by the ship owner when he goes and makes a ship in China, for example. And that will be used to build his ship and certify it as a green steel ship, zero steel ship, which will have value, which will add value probably from the charterer's point of view, or probably when he sells the ship, it is tagged with a zero steel ship. So the emission is the key word there. That means the emissions for that ship, when he starts from zero on virgin ship, is maybe 0 or 10 or 20, whatever it is. But that's the key point. That means the ship starts with a very low emission value.
If I could just add to that answer, actually, I think That's a very interesting question. And I, like all lawyers, I just say it depends very much on how you define circularity, right? And a lot of times when we think about steel and circularity, we think about the source of this steel being from the ship itself, which is why we talk about, going back to the ship and it being contained in this single economic system. But I agree with you, there are other ways that this green steel that comes from responsible ship recycling that could become part of a new ecosystem. And I agree with you. I think that is an issue that the industry needs to figure out. What is this circle we're really talking about, and how do we really define it? Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I don't think we have time for this question. Maybe we can connect offline, I believe. So thank you very much for attending this panel. I'll let you to the rest of the day. And thanks to my guests. Please give them an applause. Thank you.
And could I just say thank you to Julio as well and Christoph earlier for the presentation. Actually, just one final thought. Julio, just before we break for coffee. I was thinking a little earlier, my mind was turning to, how can these contradictions be solved? And I guess all of us here would have heard that how AI is going to save the world. Yeah. So I put to ChatGPT the question a little earlier: how can the contradictions between ship recycling regulations be resolved? There's good news and bad news, folks. The good news is that resolving contradictions between ship recycling regulations typically requires international cooperation and standardization efforts. And here are some steps that can be taken. And there are about 7 steps: harmonization of regulations, transparency and information sharing, industry involvement, all motherhood and apple pie. Really, really wonderful things. It's really going to take us a long way. Dispute resolution mechanisms, periodic review, capacity building. However, here's the but, the final paragraph. I tell you, AI is cleverer than you think it is, because it always has a nice get out at the end. It's important to recognize that resolving contradictions between ship recycling regulations is a complex and ongoing process, and international collaboration is key to finding common ground and promoting environmentally responsible ship recycling practices. So there you have it. The brain power of this room, I'm sure, can take us further than that. And on that note, I think we all need a stiff coffee before the final session. So thanks again to the panel, and look forward to seeing you in about 15 or 20 minutes or so. Thank you.